All right, so welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're tackling the world of cybersecurity, but, with a bit of a twist, a space twist.
That's right. Yeah, we're looking at a cyber attack that hit the Polish space agency POLSA. And the funny thing is, I found the story in the Euro Weekly News, which is it's a publication that's really targeted at expats living in Spain.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's not exactly where you'd expect to find breaking news about international cybersecurity, but I guess it just goes to show that these kinds of incidents can really have ripple effects across the globe.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, okay, before we get into the details of the attack itself,
Yeah.
could you maybe just set the scene for us, like for those of us who aren't, rocket scientists? What exactly does POLSA do?
So basically, POLSA is like the driving force behind Poland's, space ambitions. They're developing satellites, they're running scientific missions, and they're partnering with other countries on space exploration. So they're a pretty key player in Europe's space scene.
Okay, so not your typical target for hackers. I mean, you'd think they'd be more focused on, stealing financial data or disrupting power grids or something like that.
Yeah, you'd think so, but this incident really shows how the landscape of cyber attacks is changing. Any organization that has valuable data or plays a strategic role, even a space agency, can become a target.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So, all right, walk me through what happened here. When did Pulse first realize they were under attack?
So it was on Sunday, March 2nd, 2025, Policy discovered an unauthorized breach in their IT network at their main office in Warsaw, and it was a Sunday, so, who knows how long the attackers had been inside their systems at that point.
A Sunday attack. Wow, that's adding insult to injury.
Yeah.
So what did they do? How did Pulse respond?
So the Minister for Digitalization, Krzysztof Gakowski, he went public with the news pretty quickly and confirmed that there was an investigation underway. And in the meantime, Policia, they took the pretty drastic step of disconnecting their entire network from the internet. They basically pulled the plug to prevent further damage and, try to protect sensitive data.
Wow, so they just completely cut themselves off from the internet. I mean, that's a bold move. It's not like they can just switch to pen and paper for their space research.
Right, exactly.
It really shows just how seriously they're taking this attack. So let's get into the mystery here. Who could be behind this attack? Any clues?
Well, officially, Polish authorities haven't publicly named any suspects yet. But, given the current geopolitical climate, it's not really a surprise that a lot of people are pointing fingers at Russia.
Right, because Poland has been one of Ukraine's staunchest supporters throughout the conflict,
Yeah.
providing humanitarian aid, military equipment, even offering refuge to Ukrainian citizens. Could this attack be some kind of retaliation for that support?
It's definitely a theory that's gaining traction, especially when you consider that Russia has a history of using cyber attacks as a tool of geopolitical influence.
Right, right. But wouldn't attributing a cyber attack with absolute certainty be incredibly difficult, even for, cybersecurity experts? I mean, how can they be so sure it's Russia if they haven't even officially named them as a suspect?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Attributing cyber attacks is notoriously complex. There's always a degree of uncertainty. Hackers are masters at covering their tracks. It's this digital game of cat and mouse, and often the evidence is largely circumstantial.
Yeah, it makes sense. So we've got this attack potentially linked to Russia playing out against the backdrop of the conflict in Ukraine. It all feels very cloak and dagger, like something out of a spy thriller. But before we, jump to conclusions, I think we need to understand the bigger picture here. What's the strategic value of targeting a space agency? I mean, it's not like they're housing nuclear launch codes.
That's a great question, and it really gets to the heart of why this attack is so significant. You see, attacking a space agency isn't just about stealing data, it's about disrupting international collaborations, potentially slowing down research and development in the entire sector. And that's where the real strategic advantage lies.
So it's more like a long game. They're trying to undermine Poland's progress in space, which could then have ripple effects on their international partnerships and overall influence in the field.
Precisely, space is becoming increasingly important, both strategically and economically so. Disrupting a nation's space program, even temporarily, can have far-reaching consequences.
Yeah, I'm starting to see why this seemingly isolated cyber attack is actually a pretty big deal. It's like a digital monkey wrench thrown into Poland's space program. But the fallout could be much larger. But what else could they be after? Is there a chance this is about more than just disruption?
Well, there's also the very real possibility that this attack is about espionage. POLSA undoubtedly possesses valuable data from satellite imagery and research findings to cutting-edge technological blueprints. That kind of information would be highly sought after by foreign intelligence agencies.
Okay, so espionage. But wouldn't Russia, with its own robust space program already have access to a lot of this information? What makes Pulse's intelligence so unique that they'd risk such a blatant attack?
Well, that's where it gets even more interesting. While Russia certainly has its own capabilities, there's always a hunger for more intel, especially in the realm of emerging technologies and international collaborations. They might be looking for specific data related to Pulse's partnerships with other European countries or information on their latest satellite technology.
It's like a digital arms race for information. Everyone wants an edge, and they're willing to go to extreme lengths to get it. But could there be something more to this than just espionage, something even more strategic?
There's another angle we need to consider, and that's the possibility that this attack is intended as a message or a warning. It could be a way for the attackers to flex their cyber muscles, demonstrate their capabilities, and intimidate Poland.
So it's not just about the data itself, but also about sending a signal showing Poland and its allies that they're vulnerable. It's almost like a modern-day show of force. But instead of tanks and missiles, they're using lines of code.
Exactly, and that's what makes this incident so concerning. It raises the question of whether this is a one-off attack or a sign of things to come. Could this be a taste of how future conflicts will play out where cyber warfare becomes the go-to weapon?
That's a chilling thought. If that's the case, then we all need to be a lot more aware and prepared for this new digital battleground. But before we get too lost in the, potential fallout, let's take a step back and unpack what we've learned so far about the attack itself.
All right, so we know that POLSA discovered the breach on a Sunday. They took the bold move of disconnecting from the internet entirely, and while the investigation is ongoing, suspicion has fallen on Russia due to Poland's unwavering support of Ukraine.
Right, and we've discussed a few potential motives, disruption, espionage, and even a show of force, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. We've got a lot more ground to cover in our deep dive into this cyber attack on POLSA. You're saying this could be like a preview of how conflicts will be fought in the years to come. That's a pretty intense thought. What makes you think that?
Well, just think about the advantages of a cyber attack compared to, traditional warfare. It's relatively low cost. You can strike targets from anywhere in the world, and it's incredibly difficult to definitively prove who's responsible. It's a way to exert power and influence without, actually putting boots on the ground.
I see what you mean. It's like a ghost army operating in the digital shadows, striking with precision and leaving almost no traces behind.
Yeah.
But why target a space agency specifically? What's the strategic value there?
Well, space is becoming more and more critical to national security and economic competitiveness. Satellites, they provide essential communication, navigation, and intelligence capabilities. So by disrupting or compromising a nation's space infrastructure, you can basically cripple their military operations, disrupt their economy, and even undermine their global standing.
So it's about more than just the immediate damage. It's about sending a message, showing that you have the power to disrupt critical infrastructure and maybe even deterring future actions. It's like a form of digital power projection. But let's talk about the human element for a second.
Yeah.
I imagine an attack like this must be incredibly stressful for the people working at POLSA.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine showing up to work one day and finding out that your entire network has been compromised. It creates this sense of vulnerability, not only for the organization, but also for the individuals who work there. It's a reminder that cyber attacks aren't just, abstract events. They have real-world consequences for real people.
And it's not just the people at POLSA who are affected, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they collaborate with researchers and agencies all over the world. So this attack could have ripple effects across the entire space exploration community.
Yeah, you're right. Space exploration is inherently collaborative. Countries share data, expertise, and resources to achieve common goals. So an attack like this can erode trust between partners, disrupt joint projects, and ultimately slow down progress in the field as a whole.
It's like a digital virus spreading distrust and disruption across borders and organizations. It's a reminder that in the digital age, we're all interconnected, for better or for worse. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the practical implications of this attack. What kind of data could the attackers be after?
Well, there are a few possibilities. First, there's the obvious target-sensitive data related to POLSA's ongoing projects, including research findings, technological blueprints, and even satellite imagery. This information could be valuable to foreign governments or even private companies looking to gain a competitive edge.
So it's like industrial espionage, but in space, stealing secrets to boost your own space program or undermine your rivals. But what about data that's not directly related to space exploration? Could there be something else thereafter?
Right, that's where it gets really interesting. Remember, POLSA is a government agency, so it likely has access to a wide range of sensitive information, including data on critical infrastructure, national security policies, and even personal information of employees and contractors.
So the attackers could be using this breach as a stepping stone to access other government networks or gather intelligence on Poland's broader activities, not just their space programs, like a digital backdoor into the heart of the Polish government. But how would they even go about doing that? I mean, hacking a space agency sounds pretty complex.
You'd be surprised how vulnerable even the most sophisticated organizations can be. Hackers are constantly developing new techniques to exploit weaknesses in software and human behavior.
Hmm.
They might use phishing emails to trick employees into giving up their credentials, or they might exploit vulnerabilities in outdated software to gain access to the network.
It's a constant cat and mouse game, isn't it? The defenders are always trying to stay one step ahead of the attackers, patching vulnerabilities and strengthening their defenses. But the hackers are always finding new ways to break in. It seems like there's no such thing as perfect security in the digital age. But what can we learn from this attack? How can we better protect ourselves and our organizations from these kinds of threats?
That's the million-dollar question, and one we'll be exploring in just a bit. But first, I think it's important to acknowledge that cyber attacks are no longer just a problem for IT departments or cybersecurity specialists. They're a threat to our national security, our economies, and our way of life. We all have a role to play in building a more resilient digital future.
That's a really good point. It's not just about technology, it's about people and how we adapt to this new digital reality. So I think that's a great place to transition into our next segment, where we'll dive deeper into the practical steps we can all take to protect ourselves in this ever-evolving digital world. Okay, so we're back, and after diving into all the potential motives and the fallout from this cyber attack on Polis, and I got to say I'm feeling a little bit vulnerable myself. Like, if a space agency can get hacked, what hope is there for the rest of us?
Well, I understand the concern, but it's important to remember that awareness is really the first step towards resilience. The fact that we're having this conversation, that you're even thinking about these issues, that's already a positive sign.
Okay, well, that's reassuring. But awareness alone isn't going to stop a hacker from, breaking into my email account, right? So what are some concrete steps that we can take to protect ourselves, both as individuals and as organizations?
You're right. Awareness is just the beginning. We need to translate that awareness into action. And that starts with understanding the basics of cybersecurity hygiene. Think of it like washing your hands. It's a simple habit, but it can make a huge difference in preventing the spread of germs. So in the digital world, practicing good cyber hygiene means things like using strong, unique passwords for all your accounts, being wary of suspicious emails and links, keeping your software up to date, and backing up your important data regularly.
So it's like those public service announcements, but for the digital age. Stop, sync, connect, that sort of thing. But I gotta be honest, sometimes those messages can feel a little preachy. Is there a way to make cybersecurity more engaging? Less like a chore?
Absolutely. One way is to think of cybersecurity as a game. The attackers are always trying to find new ways to break in, so it's up to us, the defenders, to outsmart them. It's a constant challenge. But it can also be quite fun and rewarding when you successfully thwart an attack. And another way to make cybersecurity more engaging is to personalize it. Think about what's important to you. Is it protecting your financial information, your personal photos, your online reputation? Once you identify what you want to protect, it becomes easier to motivate yourself to take the necessary steps.
That's a good point. It's like anything else in life. If you don't care about it, you're not going to put in the effort.
Yeah.
But what about organizations? What can they do to strengthen their cybersecurity posture and protect themselves from these increasingly sophisticated attacks?
For organizations, cybersecurity needs to be a top priority, not just an afterthought. They need to invest in robust security systems, implement strong password policies, and multi-factor authentication, regularly train their employees on cybersecurity best practices, and conduct regular security audits to identify and address vulnerabilities.
It sounds like a lot of work, but I guess the alternative is even worse, right? Imagine the damage to an organization's reputation, not to mention the financial costs if they were to experience a major data breach.
Exactly. It's about weighing the costs and benefits. Investing in cybersecurity upfront might seem like an expense, but it's a small price to pay compared to the potential damage of a successful attack. And it's not just about protecting data, it's about protecting the organization's reputation, its customers, and its employees.
So it's not just an IT issue, it's a business issue, a societal issue. It affects all of us. But it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of the problem. What can we as individuals do to make a difference?
Well, one of the most important things you can do is to stay informed, read articles, listen to podcasts like this one, follow cybersecurity experts on social media. The more you understand about the threats and the techniques that attackers use, the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself. And you can also advocate for stronger cybersecurity measures in your workplace. your community, and even with your elected officials. Cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility, and we all need to work together to create a safer digital world.
That's a really powerful message. It's not about being a tech expert or a cybersecurity guru. It's about being informed, being vigilant, and being proactive.
Mm.
It's about taking those small steps like using strong passwords and being careful about what you click on that can make a big difference in the long run.
Exactly. And it's about remembering that cybersecurity is not a destination, it's a journey. The threats are constantly evolving, so we need to be constantly learning and adapting. But by working together, by sharing information and supporting each other, we can create a more secure and resilient digital future.
So from what seemed like an isolated cyber attack on a Polish space agency, we've uncovered a much larger story about the changing nature of conflict, the interconnectedness of our digital world, and the urgent need for a collective approach to cybersecurity. It's a complex and challenging landscape, but one that we can navigate successfully with awareness, preparation, and collaboration. And as we wrap up our deep dive today, we want to leave you with something to think about. Could this attack on POLSA be a watershed moment, a wake-up call that forces us to rethink our approach to cybersecurity on a global scale?
It's a question worth considering. The digital realm is no longer a separate domain. It's deeply intertwined with our physical world, our economies, our governments, and our lives. What happens in cyberspace has real-world consequences, and we all have a stake in ensuring that it's a safe and secure environment for everyone.
Well said. And on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of cybersecurity. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe in the digital world.